a new challenger has entered the battlefield. Because now, we are talking about yet another player that you could add to the Montreal Canadiens' potential list of young, up-and-coming players that could be on their radar. And this trade idea is one that I think is really solid for both sides. I think both sides would be getting something that they want very much in this type of a move. But of course, we have to get some introductions heading into today's video. So, where exactly is this coming from? What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the Canadiens and Kent Hughes and his dedication towards trading for a younger, up-and-coming player who may have fallen out with his current team. Taking inspiration from the Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook trades of the past, Kent Hughes seems to be going down this path one more time to maybe get a guy like, let's say, a Kent Johnson, or a Trevor Zegras, or a Marty Necas, or a Patrick Laine, or a Marco Rossi, Cole Perfetti. Lots of guys can toss themselves into that conversation of being young, talented forwards that may not project all too well with their current teams as well as we thought they could have. Now, of course, this is a pretty recurring topic on this YouTube channel. We talk about these kinds of guys all the time. But when it comes to today's idea, we're referring to the same player that we had talked about in one video a few days ago, Rutger McGroarty of the Winnipeg Jets. Mostly because, when it comes to this young talent, he is one of the guys that I feel has improved the most since his draft selection in the 2022 NHL Entry Draft. And with his overall progression, I think this is a super interesting target that the Montreal Canadiens can have. But where exactly is this coming from, Lego? Why are you talking about McGroarty and the Canadiens? Well, okay, let's go out there and refer to our source. Let's go over to an article published on the Winnipeg Sun. This was by Scott Billick on June 26th, so yesterday, and it talks about how feverish days are ahead for the Winnipeg Jets. Now that, of course, is not a good sign. If you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, you want to see them improve and get better from year to year to year. This article opens up by talking about how the next few days could be pretty feverish for the Jets, who can never quite manage a peaceful offseason. They're likely to trade top prospect Rutger McGroarty at any moment and could continue to sell off with a dynamic winger like Nikolai Ehlers, who, with 1 year left in his contract, is reportedly uninterested in re-signing with the only team he's ever known. There also is the conversation about buyouts. Could Nate Schmidt be on his way out? Who really knows? There are a lot of things that could change with the Winnipeg Jets and the personnel on the ice and the prospects in the system. But when it comes to McGroarty, this is what the article writes about even further. The bombshell dropped earlier this week that the 20-year-old forward has grown sour on Winnipeg's development plans for him. The relationship between the University of Michigan star and the club has grown untenable, and regardless of whose side you take or where you lay the blame, the Jets are looking to move him as the ship has sailed on healing that fracture. The good news is that McGroarty's emergence in the trade market is said to have no shortage of dance partners willing to tango with GM Kevin Cheveldayoff, which, of course, is not surprising. I mean, the guy's very, very, very good. While Kevin Cheveldayoff could use McGroarty as a bargaining chip to get back into the first round, the aim could be higher. The article then talks about how the Philadelphia Flyers used Cutter Gauthier to get a whole bunch of stuff, and how McGroarty could maybe have some sort of a similar impact. There's a conversation about the Columbus Blue Jackets, but then this is where the article writes out, I wonder if the Montreal Canadiens are also on the horn, offering Justin Barron, Morgan's brother. Justin didn't have a great year in Montreal, and his stock has fallen since his 25th overall selection in the 2020 NHL Draft. And so with this, we open the door to the conversation of whether or not the Montreal Canadiens could acquire Rutger McGroarty in some sort of a trade involving Justin Barron. Now, let's talk about McGroarty in the same way that we had talked about him a few days ago. He's a very good player. 20 years old, 6'1", 205 as a center left winger. And there was a period of McGroarty's career, I'd say, where he was seen as one of the potential top picks in the 2022 draft. I think even back in like 2019, we made our franchise generational video on top prospects heading into the next few years, and Rutger McGroarty was put in that elite status ranking. You can see I also had some other guys back from 2015, for example, Matthew Barzal, Besser, Timo Meier, Thomas Chabot. You gotta remember this video was made back in 2019, so it wasn't really as cohesive than if you were to make it right now. But Rutger McGroarty was a player that was so good as a junior, eventually playing for the NTDP, scoring a whole bunch of goals, and then exploding onto the scene with the University of Michigan Wolverines. 52 points in 36 games played as a sophomore this previous season, 16 goals, 36 assists. He also had 9 points in 7 games as the captain of Team USA, going out there and winning the gold medal. So McGroarty had himself a super great final year of eligibility at the World Juniors, but because the Winnipeg Jets are in the spot that they're at, because they have the players they have, and because they're thinking about developing McGroarty in a certain way, there is a disagreement. He does not vibe with the way the Winnipeg Jets want to develop him. He wants out, and there could very well be a fire sale of top-tier Winnipeg Jets valued assets. We're not even talking about Nikolai Ehlers in this video, but the Jets could go through some serious change and make some big trades. Now, when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, this article goes out there and mentions Justin Barron as a potential target. And, of course, the easy connection to make here, oh, why would the Jets want Justin Barron? It's because they have his brother Morgan Barron, who did play with the Winnipeg Jets this most recent season. He had 80 games played and 18 total points. Morgan Barron is an NHL caliber asset, and he is 25 years old. He's a big dude, 6'4", 220. There's a lot to like with Morgan Barron. Justin Barron, as an offensive leading defenseman, is a lot different. But, of course, there is always the nice story of being able to have yourself a brotherly connection. It boosts sales, it makes things more interesting. It's good for everybody, right? But when it comes to Justin Barron, the fact that he's also a right-handed defenseman could bode very well in these conversations too. If the Winnipeg Jets are going to be in a position to buy out a guy like Nate Schmidt, for example, if they open up a spot on the right side, I get it, Schmidt is left-handed, but he plays on the right very frequently. If the Jets are in a position to open up a spot there, I could totally see a guy like Justin Barron being given an opportunity to break out and get some consistent playing time. I get it, you could say, wait a minute, this guy couldn't even crack the Montreal Canadiens defense corps for 82 games played. But that's not really an indictment against him, it's more so just the Canadiens had way too many guys that were around that skill level that they rotated in and around these names throughout the entire season. It's why Justin Barron spent time in both Montreal and Laval. Of course, he did have some things to work on, but for the most part, his offensive instincts were as you would expect out of a guy who was kind of advertised as being that kind of a player. Either way, though, Justin Barron is only 22 years old, so there is still a lot of time for him to improve and get better. If the Winnipeg Jets maybe want to get a little bit patient here and say, okay, we tried out the offensive defenseman strategy in the past. We had other younger guys come in here and try to make an impact. I think the one that stands out to me the most was Sami Niku. That was an offensive defenseman experiment that didn't really work out. There were some other guys as well that you could debate are in that same realm. Ville Heinola, he's still kind of been a question mark when it comes to what the Canadiens, or not the Canadiens, excuse me, the Jets are doing with him. Logan Stanley, I don't know. Josh Morrissey, at least, was okay. He's been fine. In fact, more than fine. Very, very good Josh Morrissey has been. So there's like the one example of a guy that actually did develop properly and became great. I guess you could argue Jacob Trouba as well. So if the Winnipeg Jets feel like they have some younger defensemen that they want to bring into their lineup over the next few years, Justin Barron could be a very good introductory piece to that sort of movement. It's not guaranteed, of course you have to bet on Barron to becoming better, but maybe it's a lot easier to do that when he's playing behind a team that's just better than Montreal in general, and the team that boasts his brother too. In exchange, the Montreal Canadiens could get themselves that top young guy in Rutger McGroarty, but of course, this is just a trade idea. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about these thoughts? If you're a Winnipeg Jets and or a Montreal Canadiens fan, what are your opinions about the idea of Rutger McGroarty for Justin Barron, and maybe add on a few extra things there too, just to make it worth the Jets' while, so to say. Rutger McGroarty is so good. Like, he could be extraordinarily valuable in being able to create offense. There is an elite ceiling with McGroarty. He could get a 30-goal season every few years or so. He's that good. So what's the price on that? Is it Justin Barron? And if not, what do you have to add to make it better? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99. And bye.